Good morning. This is Debra V. Wilson in Haifa, Israel. The date is the 25th of March 2017. It's Saturday. The time is 900 hours and 17 minutes, and that's GMT plus 2. Today's podcast is timely, and it's some additional observations here in Haifa around identity and the construction of identity. I will save for a later date the components that go into constructing identities, politically speaking. But for the moment, this podcast is understanding constructed identities and what the identity assigned to you when engaging with others. Not the other, but others. I'm visibly of African descent, and people here in Haifa from all myriad of ethnicities literally stop me on the street to ask me where I'm from. Identity is very important here in Haifa and in Israel in general. But this certainly isn't the only space and place I've been in which identity was paramount. 20 years ago when I lived in Ireland, I lived in a small town called Dundalk, and for a time I was the integration, and I was stopped all the time. The initial thought was that I was African, Nigerian to be specific, but the moment I spoke, people said, with a smile on their face, you're an American. Then the next question was if I was Catholic, which I was practicing Catholic at the time. Identity in Ireland now and as ever has been very important. So to fast forward back to this time and place, the place I'm staying, I run across Americans on a fair bit, and it always the same. It's always the same. There are lots and lots of stares. Sometimes the head goes from side to side, and I often know they're American before they know I'm American because typically people are traveling in groups or with another person, so they're conversing. And invariably, as did this morning, someone will ask me, where are you from? I'll say in America, and then they'll ask where in America. And then I will say from Chicago. I'm originally from Chicago. Then the next question is, well, who are you traveling with? And I think the assumption around that is most people travel on their with a group or with someone. I'm used to traveling, doing the solo travel thing. It's where my comfort zone is. In any case, when I tell them I'm traveling alone, the head really starts turning, and it's, then it's, what are you doing here? And then when I'll ask, well, what are you doing here? I'll bounce the question back, and then they'll come back to me, and they'll say, and you're here? Well, I'm looking at national security, Israel's national security, how the diversity here in Haifa impacts the state's constructed security model. Then I get head turning from side to side, and then invariably, and it never fails, and it happened again this morning, this wonderful gentleman of faith began to tell me about African Americans that he knew in his home state of Texas. It was one story after the other about African Americans. And as Allah is my witness, he then began to imitate the accents of some African Americans in the East Texas town he lived in. It's always iteration of that. My conceptualization of this situation is that I'm out of the context in which most Americans would expect to find me. The same thing happened in Ireland when I would bump into Americans, literally with raised voices of curiosity. What are you doing here? And this morning I was reminded again of whatever this man's constructed construction of African American identity. I had stepped out of it. And I think also as well the gender as well during my interest in national security. I didn't pick up malice. I didn't pick up, and ironically, although some people would differ, I didn't actually pick up any discrimination. I think we all carry around in our baskets and ideals of how we define our identity, how we self-construct our own identity, and how we construct and assign identity to others. And so I know now, and it has been the case for years, that when I meet other Americans in my travels, I'll sometimes take a breath because I'm waiting for the myriad of questions. And so now I have assigned a constructed identity to my fellow Americans when I travel. The importance of this is, for me, in terms of my research, is that whether we know it or not, we all walk around with our basket full of not only our self-constructed identity, but how we assign identity to others that we engage with. And the way in which we assign those identities, construct those identities and assign meanings, does impact how we interact with each other. So in my travels here in Israel, I've noticed right away, not only from the local population, immediately, where are you from? And here in Israel, subtlety, Israelis remind me of African American culture. You get to the point, and where are you from? And immediately when I say I'm American, there's always a smile. There's never not been a smile. The difference is that when the American asks me, where are you from? And they've ascertained and verified that I'm American, then the next question is, what are you doing here? AKA, the way I'm reading that is you stepped out of your context. Now explain to me why you're out of your context. But when Israelis ask me where I'm from, and I say America, I see the smile go across the face, and then not that they don't see me as black before they've engaged with me, I'm visibly of African descent, but the moment they identify I'm American, the most fascinating things that Israelis have done, bar none, who've engaged me in this conversation, is then they start telling me what they know about America, not black Americans. Oh, I have family there. Oh, I used to live there. What part of the country are you from? Yes. I know people that live there. I used to live there. Oh, I always wanted to travel there. So it's very interesting, and it's fascinating how we continually go through the world, and one of the ways in which we maneuver is to not only have a sense of ourselves and how we self-construct our identity, but I think for many of us, we understand what the identities that are being projected onto us. That's a whole other podcast, and how that impacts how we maneuver in the world, and then how we assign identity to others. It's fair to say my politics are left of center. It's also fair to say that there are some things in which politically I would probably differ from the sitting Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu, who I'm thinking of him this morning because one of my Facebook memories popped up in which I was critical of some of his policies. I projected my beliefs and constructs of Bibi Netanyahu, the politician, onto all Israelis. And I also projected my belief in Bibi's political ideologies onto him as a person. One of the reasons why I came to Israel was to challenge my own constructs and to see the country in a more nuanced way, and to certainly see the pieces, the people, the societies, the cultures that make up the country. And I am doing that. And It is, in some cases, some things I thought were confirmed, but also equally, and I would say even maybe more so, things I thought constructed identities that I had constructed have been challenged. Uh, and so I'm acutely aware of not only constructed identities that are projected onto me, but as I maneuver through Israel on my own, as a woman of African descent and visibly of African descent, I'm aware of how I maneuver through Haifa with my bag of constructed identities that I'm projecting onto others simultaneously while they're projecting onto me. It's a bit of a ramble that I hope you followed, and this is Debra Wilson. I'm still in Haifa, Israel, and I'm still alone, and I'm still studying national security. Thank you.